Marriage begins with a promise, a commitment to love and cherish one another for better or worse, in sickness and health, until death parts you. When I married Amanda 13 years ago, I took those vows to heart. She and I had been together for 4 wonderful years before we tied the knot, including 2 years of happily living together. We seemed to have everything a strong relationship needed: shared goals, similar values, common interests, and an undeniable chemistry that made life together feel easy and fulfilling. At the time, I felt confident Amanda was my forever partner. She wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend. I couldn't have imagined a more perfect match for building a life together. But looking back, I now see there were subtle signs that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. In the months leading up to the end of our marriage, Amanda's behavior began to change. It started small, moments I brushed off as normal fluctuations in any long-term relationship. She became slightly more withdrawn, less interested in talking about her day or our plans for the future. Sometimes, when I reached out to hold her hand or give her a kiss, her responses felt delayed, as though she wasn't fully present. Then there was her growing attachment to her phone. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone uses their phone constantly these days. But Amanda's habits seemed different. She started keeping her phone locked more often and wouldn't let me glance at the screen. If I casually asked who she was texting, she'd give vague answers or shrug it off as nothing. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Every relationship needs boundaries, and I wanted to respect hers. Still, her sudden secrecy struck me as odd. It felt unnecessary, like she was creating a barrier between us where none had existed before. If anything, her guarded behavior made me more aware of the phone. It became a quiet tension in our marriage, one I didn't want to confront but couldn't completely ignore. Then came the night everything unraveled. Amanda and I were cozied up on the couch, sharing a blanket and watching a movie we'd both been looking forward to. It felt like a rare moment of closeness, a break from the distance that had crept into our relationship. But that peace shattered when Amanda's phone suddenly blared a loud, urgent ringtone. She jumped up so quickly it startled me. Without saying a word, she grabbed her phone and bolted down the hallway, locking herself in the bathroom. I sat there, stunned, watching her reaction unfold as if in slow motion. Through the bathroom door, I could hear her speaking in hushed, frantic tones. The words were muffled, but the tone was unmistakable, intense, secretive, and completely out of character. When Amanda finally emerged several minutes later, I couldn't hold back. I asked her who had called and why she had reacted so dramatically. Her face turned red as she stumbled through an explanation about a harmless guy friend from work. The excuse felt weak, especially since I didn't know of any male coworkers she was close to. I wanted to believe her, but doubt started to gnaw at me. Why had she felt the need to hide the call? Why lock herself away to take it? Her behavior that night didn't just feel strange, it felt like the beginning of the end. The days after that suspicious phone call left me restless. Amanda's explanation didn't sit right with me, and the more I thought about her reaction, the more it felt like something was being hidden. But I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. I wanted to trust my wife. I told myself there might be a logical explanation for her behavior that didn't involve betrayal. Still, Amanda's secrecy only grew. She kept her phone close, never letting it out of her sight. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd quickly lower the screen or tilt it away from view. Her late-night trips to the bathroom with her phone in hand became more frequent. When I asked her about it, she dismissed my concerns with vague answers or snapped at me for prying. I tried to convince myself it was paranoia, but the tension kept building. The woman I thought I knew so well had become a stranger in small but unsettling ways. Her once warm affection felt colder, her attention divided. I began to feel like an outsider in my own marriage, kept in the dark while Amanda lived a part of her life that I wasn't allowed to see. Then came the moment when my suspicions boiled over. One evening, Amanda and I were sitting on the couch again. She was glued to her phone, texting someone with a focus I rarely saw. As I sat there watching her, my frustration grew until something inside me snapped. Without thinking, I reached over and grabbed the phone from her hands. Amanda let out a startled shriek and immediately lunged to snatch it back, but I was faster. I held the phone away as she pleaded with me to stop, her voice panicked. "It's private. It's nothing," she cried. But her reaction only confirmed my fears. With trembling hands, I scrolled through her messages. What I found made my heart drop. Explicit texts, romantic and sexual, filled the screen. They were from a man named John, a name I didn't recognize. The words they exchanged left no doubt. Amanda had been having an affair. As the reality hit me, I looked up at her, stunned. My mind raced through questions I didn't even know how to ask. How could you do this? I finally managed to say. How could you betray me like this? Amanda's face crumpled as she began to cry. She begged me to listen, to let her explain, but I couldn't hear it. The messages were proof enough. Our marriage, the life we had built together, was shattered. Through her sobs, Amanda confessed. She admitted she had been seeing John for months. She claimed it wasn't planned, that it just happened, as if that excused her choices. She explained how they met. John was a barista at a coffee shop near her work. He flirted with her every morning, and eventually, she gave in. Amanda tried to downplay it, insisting she still loved me and didn't want to lose what we had. But her words felt hollow. Her actions had already destroyed the trust and respect that were the foundation of our relationship. I told her flatly that our marriage was over. There was no coming back from this betrayal. Amanda begged, cried, and pleaded, promising she would end things with John and make it up to me. But I couldn't see a future where I could ever look at her the same way again. In the days that followed, Amanda's remorse turned to anger. When I told her I had contacted a divorce lawyer, she lashed out. She called me cold and unforgiving. She even tried to shift the blame, accusing me of not being attentive enough, of making her feel unloved. Her words cut deep, but they only reinforced my decision. Within a week, Amanda moved out of our home. She went to stay with her parents, leaving behind the life we had built together. I was left with a mix of emotions: sadness for the love we had lost, anger at her betrayal, and relief that I was no longer tied to someone who could hurt me so deeply. As Amanda moved out and the divorce proceedings began, I started to come to terms with the magnitude of what had happened. 13 years of marriage, nearly 2 decades of shared life, reduced to ashes because of her selfish choices. The grief was overwhelming at first. I wasn't just mourning the loss of my wife, I was mourning the life I thought we were building together, the trust that had been irreparably broken. Amanda, however, seemed to embrace her new reality with shocking ease. Within days of moving out, she reappeared on social media, posting pictures of herself laughing with friends at bars, posing with drinks in hand, and celebrating her new freedom. It felt like a slap in the face to see her so carefree while I was left picking up the pieces of our shattered life. But I reminded myself that people often put on a show to hide their guilt or pain. Despite the image Amanda tried to project, I suspected her life wasn't as glamorous as it appeared. I blocked her accounts to spare myself the constant reminders and focused instead on my own healing. Still, whispers about Amanda's new life found their way back to me through mutual friends and family. It turned out John, the man she had thrown everything away for, wasn't the prince she'd imagined. He was a manipulative leech who saw Amanda as an easy target. According to my sister Marina, who still kept in touch with some of Amanda's old friends, John had used Amanda to bankroll his lifestyle. He convinced her to pay his rent, fund his failed business ventures, and shower him with expensive gifts. And when he had squeezed every last penny from her, he dropped the ultimate bombshell: he had been cheating on her the entire time. The man Amanda had betrayed me for had betrayed her just as easily, leaving her humiliated and heartbroken. I can't say I felt sorry for her. It was hard to muster any pity for someone who had shown me none when she lied and cheated her way out of our marriage. Amanda's once stable life spiraled into chaos. Marina told me she had racked up massive credit card debt trying to impress John and was now teetering on the edge of financial ruin. She had even started begging friends and family for money, including Marina, who flatly refused. Amanda never reached out to me for help, likely because I had blocked her number and social media accounts, but the thought of her trying to crawl back into my life made my stomach turn. Whatever hole she had dug for herself, she could stay in it. I was done being the person who picked her up when she fell. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my own life. The divorce had been painful, like amputating a limb to stop an infection, but it was necessary. I threw myself into self-improvement, working out regularly, reconnecting with old friends, and rediscovering hobbies I had neglected during my marriage. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. Then, fate threw me a lifeline in the form of Sarah. We met at work, and though we initially tried to resist the pull of workplace romance, our connection was undeniable. She was everything Amanda wasn't: kind, honest, and supportive. A year and a half after our first meeting, I proposed to Sarah. It was a leap of faith, but one that felt completely right. When our engagement announcement hit social media, Amanda must have seen it. She sent me a brief text congratulating me and wishing me well. I replied with a curt thank you and a smiley face emoji, leaving it at that. Amanda's opinion no longer mattered, and I wasn't about to let her re-enter my life, even as a distant acquaintance. Now, at 43, I can look back on that painful chapter of my life with clarity. My marriage to Amanda taught me hard lessons about trust, self-worth, and the importance of standing up for myself. It was a long, agonizing process to rebuild after the betrayal, but it shaped me into a stronger, more resilient person. Today, I'm happily married to Sarah, a woman who truly values the meaning of partnership. We've built a life filled with trust, respect, and genuine love, the kind I thought I had with Amanda but never truly did. Sarah and I are planning to start a family soon, a dream I thought had died when my first marriage collapsed. Instead, it's a new beginning, one that feels brighter and more fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. As for Amanda, her life seems to have become a cautionary tale. From what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, she continues to repeat the same destructive patterns. Failed relationships, financial instability, and shallow attempts to fill the void left by the life she threw away. It's clear she hasn't found the happiness she once thought she would by betraying me. While I don't take pleasure in her misfortune, I also don't feel pity. Amanda made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. The version of her that once promised to love and honor me no longer exists, replaced by someone I barely recognize. In an odd way, I'm grateful for what happened. Amanda's betrayal forced me to reevaluate what I want and deserve in a relationship. It pushed me to hold out for a partner like Sarah, someone who truly appreciates and reciprocates love and loyalty. Without the pain of that chapter, I might have settled for less. If you're facing a similar situation or dealing with the aftermath of a betrayal, know that it's possible to move forward and rebuild. It won't be easy, but sometimes walking away is the only way to find happiness again. Trust yourself, set boundaries, and never compromise your self-respect for someone who doesn't value it. If you found this story helpful or inspiring, consider subscribing to my channel for more stories and lessons like this one. Your support means a lot and helps keep these conversations going.